Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We will now begin the conference session, How AV over IP is Revolutionizing Modern Audiovisual Systems and Importance of AV and IT Convergence. The session will discuss how can buyers plan ahead, what business and technical factors should be considered, implications of AV over IP network design and integration, should organizations consider AV departments internally, even though AV is getting more IP based and falling into the IT category, can IT, for instance, align 12 projectors or set up a laser projector? What are the business opportunities for Pro AV in IT sector? And to commence this session, I would like to invite on stage Moderator Abdul Waheed, Managing Director, IT Technologies, and panelists Rohan Tadke, Managing Director, RTAV, Farhan Walele, Areas Sales Director West, Crestron India, Ashish Bajaj, Director Enterprise Sales, Harman Professional Solutions India and SAARC, Rajesh Patkar, Country Manager, ZeeVee Inc. Abdul Waheed is the Managing Director at EYTE Technologies, a pioneering force in the Indian AV industry, with accolades including AVIXA CTS and CTS-I certifications and a role on AVIXA's certification committee. Abdul boasts over 2 decades of industry expertise. Rohan Tadke is a seasoned AV professional with 20 years of industry experience. He has now launched his own venture, RTAV, which aims to connect global manufacturers with the Indian market. Rohan's focus through RTAV will span across corporate, education, and healthcare sector. Further, as a part of Crestron India's core team, Farhan Walele is responsible for Crestron's market leadership in the strategic India West region. With more than 15 years of rich experience in audiovisual and unified communications, he has been a key part of Crestron's success story. Ashish Bajaj brings nearly 2 decades of seasoned industry expertise across various functions and OEMs. With more than 13 years at Harman, Ashish currently spearheads the enterprise business for the Professional Solutions division across India and the SAARC region. Lastly, starting a career as a salesperson in the field of audiovisual industry early in life, Rajesh Patkar developed himself into a person who can build business and handle the operations with ease. His tenure with Epson and Christie India, his last 10 plus years, have been a prime example of building business from scratch and making it big in the market. I would request the panelists to start the session.
Hi, good afternoon. I welcome you all for this interesting session. The topic is written, in brief, it is AV over IP, a subject which is being spoken very widely in our industry. We have interesting panelist, experienced panelist, industry leader on our stage. Just now Rohan said, like, put together we have 113 years of experience on your stage. So people are there in the industry for 2 or 3 decades, especially for Mr. Rajesh, 3 decades. So we will ask how our industry is evolving. We will discuss this subject. AV over IP. Audiovisual on internet protocols. This is the subject. So it is very fastly, very rapidly changing our product designs, our solutions, or designs that we do for our clients. To start with, let us understand, like, just for the panelists, the audience would be mixed crowd from Pro AV as well as Live AV. Some students will also be there. So we will keep it light. We will not go in depth in detail, of course, unless it is required. To begin with, I will open this panel discussion with a question to Mr. Rohan Tadke, who's from Crestron. Crestron is into product development, and they are everyone knows them, so no need of introduction. I'll ask Farhan, what is this subject? AV over IP, what it is, for people who doesn't know or are not from the AV background, we would like to ask him what is AV over IP.
Thank you, Abdulji, for your kind introduction, and it's great to be part of this panel. So your question, and you rightly said we need to keep it light, right? So very simply to put it in the context, typically you have, when we deploy any site for our customers, generally you will have two deployments which happen, right? So one is the IT, the networking part of it, the network switches and the backbone of it, on which their core of the businesses run on the IT side. And then we have AV, which is an evolving trend. Basically, AV is where your displays, your presentations, your content, your video distribution, your digital signage, that kind of a thing is running. So typically, earlier it used to be segregated systems, which means AV was completely independent, IT was completely independent. There was no linkage between the two. As time progressed, people realized, and companies and customers realized, that it is better to merge the two systems. Why? Because ultimately, the AV systems are today able to send their signals, or basically their data or their communications can be interoperated onto the IT network, can be subsumed into the IT network. So I don't need to basically, if I want to send across a video from one location to the other, I don't need to run a dedicated cable. I can use the IP backbone. I can actually send it on the network itself. Same if I want to do a control of say certain things, a projector, or I want to basically send data to a projector, etc. I can actually utilize the platform or the wiring, the cabling, the infrastructure, the products which are already laid. So those products can be from any IT vendor out there. So we are platform agnostic generally. So whether it can be Cisco, Netgear, HP. So there are a variety of IT backbone which are out there. But the whole point here is basically we are trying to utilize. We are not in today's time, we are trying to utilize the IT backbone which is already there available with the clients. Earlier, we used to be a separate independent entity to run all your products and projects, etc. So as things pass, you will see more and more of AV going on to the IP.
Thank you, Farhan, for explaining us what AV over IP and how it is getting integrated together. Just further to elaborate this subject, I will ask Ashish, who's from Harman, Director Enterprises segment. Ashish also is in the industry for quite a long time, and he has served many other organizations and working on in AV field for with a great experience. So I would like to ask Ashish, what were the problems of earlier traditional signal cables or signal protocols? Now it is as Farhan said, slowly AV signals are on IT protocols. Earlier traditional signal, when we were talking about analog, HDMI, earlier days VGA and SDI signals. So what were the challenges or problems in the conventional system? Then we talk about AV over IP further. Yeah.
I think I will like to add this, that traditional AV not always had a problem, right? I think it's just that the industry has evolved. The whole IT systems have evolved so much that network, which used to be a very big thing a few years ago, today is necessity or is available at every venue. I mean, almost every venue, people at home also have a network setup, right? So network has become so flexible and available that traditional, it makes sense to go over the network AV distribution. Traditional AV still today, I believe, finds opportunities in certain aspects. But yeah, if you talk about the flexibility, I think the biggest thing is that the whole network AV piece gives you the flexibility of expansion. When you go about any switching via traditional AV method, I mean, you're stuck to the chassis, whether it's a 8x8 or a 16x16. So you're stuck with that chassis output to it, right? But the network AV, the network switch or the network bandwidth really becomes your whole, you can say, the backbone of the distribution. So adding any input, adding any output really becomes flexible. So I think more than a problem in traditional AV, I would say the network AV gives you that flexibility of expansion. The networks have evolved over the last many years, like we say last 5-6 years. Venues have network across, so it becomes more and so important that it's better to stick with what's coming new. And like Farhan also mentioned, right, with the whole convergence of IT, the distribution becomes more flexible. So I would put it this way, that traditional AV is still used in some places, but it makes sense to go on network AV because of the infra development that we have across the venues. And majorly it's a flexibility, right? You want to add more input, just kind of add one more box and get it through with it. Also, if you see, right, I mean, nowadays whole Dante AV thing that we hear, right? I mean, earlier getting a Dante chip or getting a network was a very big challenge. But now it's all easily available. networks are easily available. So there's no point having any, you can say, proprietary protocol. It's good to go on a standards of network AV that everybody follows. So it kind of makes it more open interface with other brands across the whole IT setup as well.
Okay. Ashish told us about the flexibility that IP gives us. And like, you know, we can do, it is expandable. We can expand it at any time. And the ready infrastructure that we get when we go on IP network. I will ask further to Rohan to elaborate this subject again.
Thank you, Abdul. So, you know, just to add to what Farhan has said and Ashish has said, you know, yes, number one, Farhan is absolutely right. At the back end, you just need a one network switch kind of thing to handle both your AV as well as IT. However, if you look at it from the implementation perspective today, people would still like to keep it separate for various reasons. And I think there is a lot more scope for this to evolve in the next coming years, and I believe you know, all my fellow panelists will you know, agree on that. So yes, there is one backbone, but at the end of the day, it's still a bit separate, so that, you know, we give a proper perspective to you know, the people sitting out here. Secondly, to what Ashish said, you know, that there's no problem with the traditional system, I kind of beg to differ. There is a problem, and that's why we have AV over IP here. Yes, AV over IP does have its own challenges. It's not without its challenges, but those, I would say, are manageable challenges. Something that can be managed easily, rather than, you know, searching for ye kaun sa cable kahan gaya hai. It is very easy to sit on your laptop and, you know, just kind of find out what is going wrong with which encoder or which decoder. And it's easily addressable. So the problem still remains, but it can be addressed very effectively and easily. I think that's it from my perspective, Abdul.
Okay. Rajesh, do you agree with, like, you know, earlier traditional conventional method of AV? There were challenges, and as well as like some, as per Rohan's comment. Yeah.
Thanks, Raja. Abdul. Both Ashish and Rohan are right on their side. If that original AV had a problem, it would not have survived for so long. Okay, I mean, AV over IP would have come long back. At the AV over IP also allows you to make it easier for the customer. It's much easier, because I have worked on both the sides of table. I have worked on the SI side, I have worked on the manufacturer's side also. I have always found that the customers are more reluctant when it comes to the AV kind of install. The IT guys do not give you the permissions to install AV very easily, especially the BFSI segment, where the security is major issue. The IT guys is a big hindrance. With AV over IP, you're talking their language, so they are more comfortable. They understand it much easier than they understand a standard AV. So that is one thing which has eased out over when you start going towards AV over IP. And the original AV systems are, most of the companies, if you ask me for ours or Crestron or AMX, it's all proprietary. AV over IP, you are in an open domain. Okay, that again gives advantage to the customer, gives advantage to the ease of doing business. So that's I believe that is where the AV over IP will go in coming years.
Right. Farhan, what kind of flexibility we get when, like, you know, when we are doing AV over IP? What kind of flexibility, what kind of advantages you get? Like, you know, of course, something are already spoken up. The switches, metric switches, big boxes. Then, like, you know, for different signals, you have to carry different cables. Of course, now it is HDMI for both audio and video. But earlier days, if you remember, like, audio signals are separate. Then, like, analog time, video signals were separate. And then, like, cable trays were big, huge sizes. So all those things. So what kind of flexibility we get in terms of installation for when we go on IP protocols?
Yeah, in terms of, at least on the video side, you get great flexibility because, as Ashish pointed out, typically on the traditional systems, you had a limit in terms of how big the switcher size can go. So you had a limit, say, of 8, 16, 32 port, 64 port. The biggest switcher available was 128 by 128, right? So not from us, but from some other manufacturer. But we are doing, as Crestron, we have done systems on the network which are 2,000, 4,000 endpoints. 4,000 NVX endpoints on one single network, which would not have been ever possible by putting a traditional system. So that is one. In terms of scalability, it is really great. In terms of flexibility, as again Ashish pointed out, if you want another input, you just add a box. You just throw in a box. It just consumes one port on the network. That's all. You don't need to change the entire matrix switcher or the switcher, etc. Right? So as you want an encoder, decoder, or input and output, you just keep adding boxes as you want. So size is not an issue, flexibility is not an issue, redundancy is great because you are no longer dependent on that one box or the one product which will fail. If it fails, your entire site is down. Here, probably even if an encoder fails or a decoder fails, it's just 2 endpoints which have failed, not the entire system which has failed. So redundancy, you get really great redundancy on the AV or IP side. And one more thing which I wanted to probably add on the traditional versus AV or IP, the thing was, see, we as AV guys, 20, 30, probably 30 years, we are used to a certain quality of audio video, right? So in the traditional system, we used to get certain quality of audio video, certain speed, where as soon as you connect an HDMI cable, you get the video out. You get high quality video, as good as the source. So the challenge for any AV or IP manufacturer, whether it was Crestron or AMX or any other ZeeVee, etc., was not that we cannot encode this video and send it across on the far side. It was how good and how quick we could do this, and whether we can actually continue or better the quality which was available in the traditional system. As long as that is not there, if I am an end user and if I tell him, boss, I will change this traditional system to an AV or IP system, but you lose this video quality, you will drop down to 1080p, you will have a 10 millisecond delay or a 20 millisecond delay as compared to your traditional system, he'll say, why should I change? Today, the technology has evolved so much that I can go back and tell him, boss, this is the traditional system, this is an AV or IP system, you get exactly the same feature set in terms of the AV quality, or in fact better, but now I can do this all on the network. So then he becomes more flexible, then he becomes more adaptable. He says, okay, show me and stuff, and then the network questions arises where the IT team intervenes and they take it over. Yeah.
Rajesh, would you like to add something? Because now Rohan said, like, in terms of quality, like, of course, one advantage that we get with AV or IP is the length that we can send the signal. But with length comes the subject of delay.
That's right.
Is IP is able to address those kind of challenges, or
yes,
with some
to large
products
extent,
enhancement
to large
to your
extent,
product
yes.
development R&D?
To large extent, yes. When AV or IP, we talk about it, we talk about 2 types of networks. Bandwidth. See, basically, why people do not want the AV and the IT network on the same network is the kind of bandwidth consumed by the AV. See, the standard office network is mainly a data network, database network. So the bandwidth requirement for that is really low. Whereas when we put AV into it, we are sending video, we are doing conferencing, there is a lot of video moving around. So the bandwidth requirement goes up as and when it is being used. So that is where the people actually prefer having it separately. Separate network for AV, separate network for standard office network. When it comes to the bandwidth requirement, what he said is correct. Means when you have larger endpoints, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 endpoints, if you don't calculate the bandwidth required, okay, on the switch, you will actually go haywire. Means customer would be pulling his hairs and everything will go haywire. You'll not be able to send signals, give the required picture quality, and that's really required to be calculated. So it depends on what kind of network customer chooses and what kind of switching solution customer chooses. That's very important.
Rohan, you said, like, there is still a lot of improvement and long way to go if I interpreting it correctly.
Of course, of
Yeah.
course. See,
So what do you mean by that?
see, Abdul, I have been talking about AV over IP way before anybody came into the picture with AV over IP since 2015. I've seen the industry grow. One of the things that I feel can definitely improvise, and there are some technologies which are doing it. So when you talk about an office IT network, you know, whether it's your HP laptop, Dell laptop, Apple, they all work on the same infrastructure. In the AV over IP domain, if you look at it, a Crestron may not talk to an AMX, and you know, ZeeVee might not talk to a NetVio, for example, and stuff like that. I believe that is one big leap of improvement that can happen. So if you look at technologies like NDI, which is one of the most upcoming technologies in the AV over IP space, if you look at Dante AV Edge, people are trying to change that in a big way. And I personally think that should happen. It's, you know, we all have worked for brands and stuff like that. We want to promote our product. But from an end customer's perspective, I think that the end customer needs to have that flexibility, where he can decide, okay, if let's say X brand is not available for whatever reason, I can switch to a Y brand because at the end of the day, the technology backbone remains the same. I think that's one of the most key factors, I would say, that is important. For example, if you look at any NDI ecosystem, my phone could be on the same network, it becomes a source, no problem. I could have a PTZ optics camera, which is NDI, no problem. It could talk to a Panasonic switcher, no problem. I believe that's the kind of flexibility that we need to get in the AV over IP in the near future.
Yeah, I hope, like, you know, the manufacturers might be working in that direction. I'll come to Ashish. I happened to visit the experience center of Harman last week only. So AMX has done a lot of development in terms of, like, you know, working on the same common platform, like like configurable by any other product. So that is the direction what I understood for AMX. So Ashish, you would like to throw some light on this?
See, Rohan mentioned, I think it's all the most important that we all go on an open platform, right? I mean, talking into the proprietary language is not going to help or give us advancements, right? Dante AVH is what everybody's wanting to go into that direction, going to the H.264, 265, and then make it more interoperable so you can actually send out streams between the boxes, across the brands, across the product categories, across the platforms also, not only video, like AV, I mean the Dante AV kind of does AV, audio, video both, right, over the network. Now, that's what at AMX, as I said, we adopted, right, the new SPSI box that came out, the AMX Network AV, the 2600, and then the 3300 boxes use the same Dante AVH platform. Make it more open, more platform agnostic, go to anywhere, stream to stream over the network. Even if we talk about the new DSP, or the new controllers that we came out, the Muse, right, uses the same thing. It uses the open node RED, uses the technology which helps enable more open interaction with any third party. I mean, the whole, you can say, baseline for AMX has been the third party interface, right? I think Crestron does the same thing. The whole baseline for us as integration companies is that how we can bring products which are more interacting with a third party. So why not the protocols? I mean, we've all lived in a space where we had some specific protocol which was tied to my brand, his brand, their brand. But I think the whole open platform gives the flexibility and also the growth opportunity in future for us to really develop more technologies. See, there are opportunities, to be very frank, in more retrofits. One is new opportunity, but in the retrofit also, how do you talk to the older system? These boxes will help enable that interaction. So yes, as you rightly said, I mean, open platform is the next thing to do. As you mentioned, Dante AVH is catching up. That's the next platform to go for. And I'm sure more involvement will come, right? As the time passes by, network evolves. And I think Mr. Rajesh also mentioned, when people will understand the basic important thing for anything to work on network is to calculate the network needs. If you fail on that, everything we make is a failure. It is not a product failure. It is actually the deployment planning. So if you plan it properly, you plan the functional requirements, the network requirements, you can have as many separate networks. It will fail because you never calculate what bandwidth you needed. All the VLANs will fail. Nothing will work. So I think the baseline important point to start with is the planning of the network requirement, the bandwidth requirement. How do you segregate the data and the content? and then make it really work, and then go to the next step of configuration and throwing the streams on the network.
You spoke about retrofits. So one question came to my mind is, if there is some earlier traditional cablings also done, and those equipments also there. So are you guys also coming up with something which, like, AV over IP can take over and can talk to those kind of equipments, installed equipments? Is there anything that you have?
See, at the end, for anything in AV, the end thing goes to a cable only, right? You have to come out of the network and connect an HDMI cable. Correct? Your laptop is not having a Dante AVH port as of today, at least. Maybe the sources will have in future. But you have the
Okay,
backup
to
already.
add to that, yes, NDI does allow you to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can use his box on the laptop, man. You can all buy that box. But the point is...
There is no box required, by the way.
So the point is that as we evolve, right, for the retrofits, definitely there has to be an interface. The endpoint still remains a cable, endpoint still remains a display unit today, and you have to have an encoder or a decoder at the end to really kind of do the, go from the network to the traditional small path where the cable really comes, correct? But I'm 100% sure, we are also working today, if you really ask me, that how we can have these things directly into a display, let's put it this way, right? And that's the path all our OEMs will go, that path, that how maybe the display, which is the endpoint, can have the direct porting to a network AV platform and not have a decoder.
Just to add to what Ashish said, the NDI technology does give you that flexibility wherein you can have a direct NDI port onto your displays.
Okay.
And it works phenomenally. You don't need even an encoder at your laptop side to transmit your signal to a display. It's just one Cat6 cable. As long as it's on the same network, it works flawlessly.
Farhan, Crestron also being many a times it is heart of the entire EV system where you are controlling the equipment. So some equipments you initially had was HD based T, and then, like, we are moving towards AV over IP. So how that journey been, and what were the limitation there? And then again the subject that Ashish has brought in, like, talking to on common platform, common signal, any boxes, any brands, like still workable solution. So Crestron processor, what I've seen, has to talk to different brands many a times. So how Crestron is addressing this challenge?
So in fact, HD-based was a good start for us, right? So that was like where the AV or IP kind of kick-started, because HD-based we learned about Cat5 based cabling. We learned about, instead of terminating an VGA cable, we terminated a Cat5 cable. We ran fibers, we ran all those things. So it was like the start of AV or IP. And we, similar to what Rohan and Ashish was saying, in fact, we also agree that you don't need decoders, you don't need encoders. So we had actually launched the software NVXs where you can decode directly onto a display. Now you don't need a decoder. You can actually encode directly from a laptop. You don't need an encoder. So those kind of things are coming out to add to the boxes. Of course, boxes will be needed because there are disparate sources which are not capable to encode, like Apple TV or your Tata Sky boxes, etc. But if the system is quite capable of encoding a signal, why not do it from the box, without the box itself, right? So that is there. In terms of controls, I think, Ashish, we have been doing controls on the network for years and years now. So I still remember we had a pitch earlier when we used to say, boss, iPads came out later. Before that, we used to do control on the network. So both AMX and Crestron both, right? So we have been doing controls on the network, and we have been pushing SIs to go on the network, stay away from RS-232, IR, etc., push them towards IP. It was difficult initially because they used to prefer just soldering an RS-232 cable, plugging it and run the codes rather than going to an IT guy and talking that, sir, I need to open a port to control this display, which was difficult. But now you see the system evolving so much. And in fact, one good thing is you can see the industry evolving so much that IT players like Netgear are saying we have AV switches, Cisco saying we have AV switches. All the switch manufacturers, such a large industry, probably multi-time the AV industry is coming back and saying, boss, we are AV ready. Earlier, we used to go to a switch manufacturer and say, sir, इसको कैसे आपके system पे डालूं, configure कैसे करूं? Today, those guys are coming back and saying, can I get a slot where I can present it to your AV partners, etc. So it really tells you where the industry has gone. And I still see probably the field, although the system integrators have also evolved. They have also now become accustomed to AV on the network. So control side, though, we don't face a challenge now. Typically, most of the system integrators are doing control on the network by themselves. They don't even call us how it has to be done. When it comes to video on the network, sizing is sometimes they reach out to us, or if there is, because video is bandwidth heavy, they definitely take help from us sometimes in terms of configuration or in terms of if they're facing any challenges to troubleshoot, etc. But slowly and steadily, I think with the likes of Netgear investing so much time training our industry and other players, we should be able to evolve in a full-fledged AV or IP industry per se. We should be actually leading that AV in the IT industry. Cisco saying we have AV switches. All the switch manufacturers, such a large industry, probably multi-time the AV industry is coming back and saying, boss, we are AV ready. Earlier, we used to go to a switch manufacturer and say, sir, itko kaise आपके system पे डालूं, configure कैसे करूं? Today, those guys are coming back and saying, can I get a slot where I can present it to your AV partners, etc. So it really tells you where the industry has gone, and I still see probably the field, although the system integrators have also evolved. They have also now become accustomed to AV on the network. So control side, so we don't face a challenge now. Typically, most of the system integrators are doing control on the network by themselves. They don't even call us how it has to be done. When it comes to video on the network, sizing is sometimes they reach out to us, or if there is, because video is bandwidth heavy, they definitely take help from us sometimes in terms of configuration or in terms of if they're facing any challenges to troubleshoot, etc. But slowly and steadily, I think with the likes of Netgear investing so much time training our industry and other players, we should be able to evolve in a full-fledged AV or IP industry per se. We should be actually leading that AV in the IT industry.
So the new term AI, artificial intelligence, we heard about AI, like, making IT guys lose their job. So is it AV over IP? The AV guys will lose job. Like, you are removing all the complexities. We will not be able to use our RS-232 cables and boxes and different cables and making the complex solution. So that was our USP sometimes. So do you agree, like, we will, AV guys have to, like, do something else now?
I'm a firm believer that learning should never stop. So whether you're an AV, I believe now when we are talking so much about AV over IP, it is more important that the AV integrations and the AV fraternity themselves, they start learning more about networks rather than just depending on your IT guys.
So some people are already expert there. Like, we are
Absolutely.
learning and people from there are coming who are...
Exactly. So why do you think so many IT integrators are popping up, day by day? Because they feel, wow, this is so easy. I just need to connect this and I'm done. They know AV now. It's our turn to learn IT. That's what I firmly believe.
That's very right what he said. The IT integrators are coming in a big way in our AV field rather. Earlier days they were scared of AV because of the kind of cabling or the kind of technology we used to use, but today we speak their language. Okay.
Ashish, what is your opinion?
I think we should first of all thank the IT industry to really accept AV.
Okay.
Right? I mean, people like Netgear, like you said, coming out switches, they have started accepting AV, something which can go on their platform, right? I think it is time, right? I think it's evolving, and it will further evolve. AV, traditional AV, people have been pretty strong, right? We miss those days when we all used to do a shoulder of RS-232 connector, right? I'm sure we all have done it. We miss all those days. But today, I think, gone are the days. Network is the next thing. So it's, as he rightly said, we have to upskill or kind of learn the IT side of the business. But by the way, the IT manufacturers like Netgear came up with the AV switch. They are making life simpler also. The struggle that we had with network AV, you can say 4 years ago, configuring a switch or figuring out, breaking your head, which port to open, how to program, what bandwidth, which VLAN tagging. Now it's very simple. Just buy that switch, recall a profile, you're done. So people are making it simple. So it's gonna be, we don't want everybody to be an IT expert, but have a basic AV knowledge. But yes, that is helping the IT guys understand our systems better. Not that you can't expect, you don't expect them to understand NTSC and PAL and all those things, but at least they'll understand the basic distribution. What they understand is the distribution of AV.
Correct.
So AV is not going to lose a job, by the way. AV has enough in its own scope. The distribution of AV is what is IT taking over, right?
That's very right. Can I share one small
Yeah,
story?
yeah, sure.
When AV over IP was actually evolving about 7, 8, 9 years back, these AV over IP manufacturers, the encoder decoder manufacturers, were looking for a switch manufacturer. Cisco said no. Most of them said no. Netgear came on board. Netgear was one of the first company to come on board for AV switches. And after that, Netgear has business, their AV switches business has really grown. That amounts for a good chunk of market share for them. So that's how the AV over IP on Netgear switches has evolved.
It sounds very cool and very nice about, you want to add
Yeah,
something?
Abdul, just to add to this, see, there is no rocket science in what Netgear has done, although they have done a phenomenal job, right? It's just very basic settings at the back end that they have made sure that, we as AV guys just have to do a plug and play. I'm saying if at least we can learn that, what is required, because a lot of customers, I'm sure, where you go to, we don't want to move away from Juniper, we don't want to move away from Cisco, we don't want this, we want this. What do you do in such cases? So unless you have the basic understanding and the knowledge, it will not help. I mean, Netgear has done a phenomenal job, hats off to them, but we need to learn.
Yeah, yeah.
Just one thing which I wanted to add, Abdul, to your question was whether AV people will lose their job. In fact, we feel AV people will get better opportunities and bigger opportunities, because the kind of projects which we used to do used to be restricted by the size of the matrix switchers. So typically, if I had a 32 by 32, I used to tell the customers, oh, बस हो गया ना, इससे ज़्यादा इनपुट आउटपुट क्या करना है आपको, क्या पूरा आपको टीवी का शोरूम बनाना है. So that was the typical pitch we used to, because we did not have an option. Today, we can go and actually sell the same customers we do. In fact, across the globe and in India, we are doing sites where there are 300 displays in one facility, 400 displays, which was not possible without being on the network. And that one project is probably as good as, for that integrator, he used to do year round. That much business, the entire year, if he was doing in the entire year, say 5 years back, he can do it from one project. So being on the network, being able to learn the network skills and deploy will only increase the size and scope of the AV integrators. Of course, there will be competition. There's competition for us. There's competition for SIs. There will be competition for any other person out there, where you'll actually have to learn the newer tricks of the trades, and learning the IT part is definitely going to benefit everyone.
Yeah, Ashish?
So actually, what he said, right? Maybe it's I don't know. I think it's true, but the larger deployment of network AV components, if you have in a project, the size of the business from that customer is the highest.
Okay.
I mean, otherwise you are limited to that one room with one switcher, all-in-one switcher, sometimes 8x2 also, right? But the more you have the network deployment, now the project sizes that you see that all our integrators are doing are huge. It's also because of the network deployments of AV.
Yes, yes. We are getting many advantages, flexibility, expandable, then configuration is very easy. We are getting away of complex boxes, complex cabling. Installation become easier and faster. And then your control and management is also an advantage. But it sounds very cool, having everything on network. But is it very simple? Are there any challenges going on that direction? Of course, one thing you have spoken about is the bandwidth for video signals. Of course, there might be any more challenges if you want to add on, or how we see it.
The challenges side is basically the calculation of bandwidth. Means as your network grows, people go for a larger and larger projects where endpoints are more. If we make a mistake in calculating bandwidth, that's a major blunder any SI will commit. And I believe the manufacturers here will play a major role.
Yeah, I would like to know from Ashish and
one of the
Farhan.
things that we as manufacturers also has an ownership, or you can say responsibility, is educating the market, right? Okay, our bread and butter is we have to sell the box eventually, right? It all boils down to the sale. But if we talk about the basics of network AV, calculation of bandwidth, which switch to use, how to deploy, I think that is also our responsibility as manufacturers, which we are, I think, in our own ways doing it. So we were educating and keeping our partners, you can say, up to speed of how the deployment or the basic requirements of the deployments are. So as you said, I think definitely challenges I think the challenge is nothing but just the knowledge. And it is evolving, people are learning, deployments are happening, everybody is accepting network AV. So it is eventually going to, you can say, improve. And it's very important, while to be very frank, IT comes forward, say that I understand AV now because it is an IT convergence. There are loopholes, there are gaps. So that conversation at the beginning of the discussion has to be very clear that this is my requirement. This is the functional requirement. This is the way I want the VLAN. This is the way I want the switch. This is the way I want the deployment, the bandwidth. And once that is defined, you're talking about 95% of the job done.
Okay.
Eventually, it's going on that backbone, right? Correct. So if you solve that problem, you solve the bigger issue. So I think knowledge enhancement, knowledge sharing, network planning would ideally solve the 95% of the job.
So one is like the bandwidth calculation. One you said like, proper communication with IT team in terms of infrastructure or in terms of requirement from AV side. You would like to add something, Rohan?
The only thing that sums up all of this, what we have said, is the mindset.
Okay.
You need to have the right mindset when you're positioning the solution, Abdul. So bandwidth calculation, giving your list of the things that you need, and you go with a firm mindset. So this is what is achievable if we are able to do this. So I think a lot of time the IT guys are also scared because they feel that this is not going to work at times. This is going to clog their networks, right? So you go with the right mindset. I think it's important that the mindset needs to be changed for people that yes, it is doable. These are the things that will get it done.
One of the biggest fear of IT guys is security. That will come to in the next questions. Before that, I would like to ask Farhan, like in terms of compressing signal, there is like, there is a fear of losing quality at the end. So how your products, Crestron is like doing a lot of R&D. I think your R&D is in Bangalore, India itself. So how are you coming up with the products which is addressing this challenge?
Yeah. So that's actually a lot of our customers do ask this question that when you compress the signal, you'll end up in losses, right? So the answer which I give them is compression over the challenge. So you can actually, it's basically goes back to zipping your files and sending it over an email, right? So compression is basically you are reducing the file size and then sending it across. You are reducing the video data size and sending it across. So compression was never the challenge, no matter how good or bad the video quality is. The challenge was when you take that compression, you compress that video, how fast can you send it across to the other side so that as compared to the traditional system, you are not losing time. You're not adding delay. So we, of course, our Crestron team has worked a lot on that side. We have patent technology along with Intopix, wherein we have this pixel perfect processing, which allows you to compress and decompress at the lowest possible time without losing quality, which means we call it as a lossless video. So it is basically you connect a direct source to a display and you connect a source via the network. You go 7 rounds of network, multiple networks, multiple hops, etc. and take that video output and connect to a second display. As a layman, when I walk in and if I have hidden everything, I'll not be able to tell which is directly from the source and which is coming from the network with all these hops. So that's the kind of lossless video which we talk about. So compression was never a challenge if I want to summarize it. It was basically how fast I could do it and how accurately I could reproduce it on the other side, which now I think not only Crestron, other brands are also able to do in a much better way now.
We have seen in many exhibitions and events where Extron, Crestron and AMX people show complete bundle of 300 cables and the encoder, decoder just to show the delay how ZeeVee is addressing this delay issue.
See,
because many a times especially for digital signages when you can have at infinity distance and your length between the source and the...
That's right. As Farhan just said, that the loss of signal or loss of packet, to restrict that, it's the bandwidth or the software-driven codecs what we use. So that has been used by ZeeVee also. So we have our own technology. Crestron has, SPSI has its own technology. So, but when it comes to larger videos, there could be a loss of signal at some juncture. Somewhere it will lose. So there is always, we must look at what kind of network we are using. So there are 2 types of networks, as I said earlier, which are available today. One is 1 gig network. Second is 10 gig network. 10 gig network gives you the more possibility of having bandwidth and more easy to share a video, ease of sharing a video. So that is no loss. Okay, it's 1 divided by 1000 milliseconds. So that human eye just can't make out. So that is what is being also required by the medical field nowadays. The medical field is coming up very fast. The requirement of encoding and decoding signal at the operation theaters, that has evolved a lot. There they cannot accept any kind of delay. So it depends on what kind of protocols, what kind of packets you use. Earlier we have all seen H.264, H.265, and then JPEG. Now, as these guys use AVH as a backbone, ZeeVee uses something called SDVOE as a backbone, software-driven video over Ethernet. So that allows you to send 4K signal without any loss of packet.
Okay. Rohan, typical cases like maybe operation theater that you spoke about, whereas real-time signal is very, very much critical. Knock centers, even in broadcasting, wherein now LED guys are giving you the chroma screen and they don't want to dub and reshoot and re-edit things. Everything is happening real time. So even in delay, in lip syncing, so how this challenge is being addressed?
Yes, before I come to that question, just to continue on what you said regarding the loss in the video, and as he rightly said, yes, there is a loss, but is that loss so crucial that the customer is going to catch hold of you and say, no, this is not acceptable? Medical, for example, broadcast, for example, right? So today, if you look at broadcast, they were essentially all on SDI, and now they're all moving towards NDI. You pick up anything today, any protocol that you talk about, even in the broadcasting segment, you talk about NDI, you talk about SRT, everything has its own losses. But whether that loss is acceptable or no is, the main question I think that we need to address. For example, ISRO uses NDI products, right? And it works fine for them, right? We've done a hospital wherein the entire operation theater streaming is on, NDI protocol, and it works perfectly fine for them. So I think the more important question is whether that loss that we're talking about is acceptable. And Farhan rightly said, you blindfold the customer and you tell him, to identify. He will never be able to do that.
I'll just add an example to this, loss, what you just said. How many of us saw Mr. Modi's interview with Rajat Sharma? Which happened last week, okay, which actually happened last week. If you have noticed, okay, I don't know if you guys have seen it, if you have noticed, Rajat Sharma and Modi were standing on the stage and the LEDs behind them had a considerable delay.
Okay.
I don't know what backbone they were using, but it had a considerable delay.
Okay.
So that can be avoided. That could have been avoided.
So in many other industries also, it may be very crucial.
See, in our day-to-day life also now, you talk about, your broadcasting, for
example.
example.
Actually, where I'm coming from is I was designing a knock center now, somewhere in East. So, he was specifically asking about the delay I'm going to have using AV over IP thing. So he said, we are sitting in a knock center. We need real-time inputs. So, anything delay and our action delayed is going to be a problem. So I'm coming from that angle.
Correct.
Some areas
and there are technologies that are in AV or IP. Let's say, for example, NDI. I mean, I again keep coming back to NDI. We're talking about 10-bit HDR even on an NDI signal, even on an AV over IP signal. The loss will be there, let me tell you. The loss will be there, but is the loss acceptable or no is the main question. If the customer says it's not acceptable, we can't do. Let's say, for example, when you're talking about broadcast, right? You see a reporter holding a phone and sending his signal across. He's sending it over, an IP signal. That's a protocol called SRT, Secure Reliable Transmission. And it hardly uses 1 Mbps of your, bandwidth to send across that signal. But we all watch the news channels and TV channels in a, very relaxed way. It doesn't matter to us, right? Modi's interview, there was a lag. It didn't matter to us. So the question is, what is the customer expecting? Is that loss acceptable to the customer? Is my only question.
Okay.
Just to add, Abdul, I think at least we have seen installs, we have not seen an install where the customer has come back and said, I was happy with my earlier system, and this is adding, or this is not as good as what you had deployed earlier. I think all of them, 100% of them are happy. When you talk about examples, I think I can give you a couple of examples from Crestron's stack, which is we are running the National Stock Exchange war room on the NVX technology. There, milliseconds matters, right? If you are sending stock data, right? So you can end up in billions of dollars of losses if it gets delayed. So there they are happy with NVX. We did the NASA rover facility where the rover was sent across on the Mars, and then it is tracked by the team in US. So that is on AV or IP basically, which what I mean to say is, trust me, it is only a notion that it is not good enough, but you try, what we tell the customers is experience it, and you will actually realize that it is better or as equal as good. Only customers who have not experienced it has a fear, or they have a fear that it may not be good enough. It may not be good enough. So that's why we push the customers, have a look, go through a POC, you will realize that it is better. Put your test cases through, put your own sources and check whether it works for you or not.
You know, on a lighter note, if, you know, somebody is coming from the north and has been eating aloo paratha all this while for breakfast, and you tell him now he's moving to south and he's eating dosa, you know, it's going to take some time for him to kind of adjust to that thing. So it's all about, rightly said, take your time, just see how the system is working for you.
Okay. So coming back to the question where we have stopped, like the security aspect of it. So I would like to start from Ashish, like, you know, what kind of security measures we have in our AV products, what kind of security measures that IT guys expect client side.
So I moved to Bangalore recently. I don't know why he took this
From
aloo
north
paratha and
to
idli
dosa.
example. But I'm idli trained now, so.
Yeah.
So see, I think security over network has been the topic of discussion. I think in the traditional AV also, security was always a topic of discussion, and I think we all as OEMs have evolved, and there are standards like JITIC standards, correct? Where the secure AV platforms are the topics of discussion. So all that is produced today, whether it's network AV also, follows that security platform requirements, follows those standards that globally everybody is kind of measuring. So I don't think of any large manufacturer today who is not really producing a secure AV transport. So that concern, I think it is the knowledge enhancement of the customer, that how we can keep them informed that all the worry that you have had in the past about compression, about quality, about the delay, it's all subframe, right? I mean, all that stuff, the secure AV standards-based distribution, all of them today are addressed, right? All of them are today addressed. So it is not really a concern at all today if you transition from standard AV to a network AV when you talk about all these 6 parameters. Okay. So our request or our urge to all partners and customers always has been that listen to the story, see the demo, experience it yourself, that whatever concerns you had are actually being addressed, because those were also the concerns that traditional AV had.
But that time network used to be a separate network for the AV equipment. Now, like, you know, we are talking about on a common network.
Yeah, in fact, I was coming to that. Basically, that was one of the advantages of going the traditional way, right? So you are not bothered about security, because unless someone is actually physically cabling your output and taking it to another side, no one will be able to decode it, because that is running on a traditional system. When you go network, there is a risk that probably I am running the network on or video on the network. There could be a decoder, there could be a device which is decoding an important board meeting going on, right? So if there's an important board meeting going on, there are financials being discussed, which is on a network-based system, and there's a network layer where I can put a decoder or I can put a display output and take all the credentials from there, right? So that's where products which are secure come into picture. That's where products which are certified, and only products which are secured and certified are able to decode. That's why probably the delay in adopting open standards is still there, because security plays a major part. Video distribution is one. Security is a bigger part of this entire story, because if you're doing the Indian Parliament for an instant, you don't want someone at the security gate or probably in a in a strong room, etc., to decode this, whatever is going on, right? So those kind of install bases, when you're talking about large install bases, we are talking about hundreds of endpoints. How will you ensure that no one is snooping into the system? That's where the system has to be robust. The IT networks are secured. Networks are robust. Are the AV endpoints robust enough? That's why probably good manufacturers are still preferred on a AV network, where you know that they are certified, they are taking care of IEEE standards, 802.1 authentication, and all the encoding, decoding parameters needed to decode this feed officially rather than doing it unofficially.
Because it becomes very critical, and client is scared when you ask them to open certain ports and certain firewall layers we ask them to remove for our network to get in. So they get scared because they don't want to get into that area actually.
Correct.
Rohan?
I think I couldn't agree more with you guys that when things are going on the network, clients are going to be scared. Let's accept the fact. It's all about educating them in the right way. Yeah, this is okay. This is what we have done. We've adhered to all the certifications. We take care of all these things that are required. So I think security is an important aspect, and we should respect that as OEMs, as manufacturers, as integrators, as consultants. We should do that.
Yeah, actually from product manufacturing side, that's what I wanted to ask you, what kind of, Ashish has explained, like certain kind of certification, the manufacturers are themselves following. So those kind of things give kind of sigh of relief to the end users, like yeah, it is already under this kind of standards and certification. So that is like, more important, that area has to be addressed by manufacturers.
Yes, that's correct. Means, as he said, at IEEE or at TAS certifications, these are the certifications which manufacturers get it done, which is really required for a security, from the security point of view.
Correct.
If you remember what I said earlier, the IT guys were always scared of AV mainly because of to open the ports.
Right.
Okay, BFSI or the government networks, they are always scared of opening the ports and giving access to the AV guys.
Right.
This is the main reason. But today the manufacturers are getting the products which are more secured.
Right.
And I believe that will evolve over the period also. And we will be there.
Okay. One more aspect, like, in terms of cost, how is deployment, like, when it was traditional AV versus when the products are coming from AV or IP platforms? So, of course, like initial cost is less. You want to address this, Ashish?
These are the two ways to answer this.
Of course, manufacturers are not comfortable talking cost on the stage, actually.
Well, you're not talking about that, who is more expensive. But that's why
Farhan immediately gave the mic to Ashish.
We have some discounts going on, by the way. So, see, I think always, right? So I think, it all depends on the deployment and the scale of the project. Correct? Eventually, the cost of replacing, as you said, 8x8 matrix switcher and 16x16 matrix switcher, and when you want the 17th input, will be very high.
Correct.
So it's how you have to really define that what will be the requirement down the path, right? If you always know that the room will only need 4 inputs and 2 outputs, maybe network, there are easier ways of doing a switching, right? But when you have a larger deployment, you have a convention center, you have a large, like a knock room, for example, or a stadium or a hotel, right? It all may make more sense that more flexibility that you add. So the future deployment or the expansion of the project helps you kind of come down on the cost. Having said that, I think we have to always remember it was network which was also the constraint earlier. Network today is very easily available. As I said, houses have network. Correct? Network switch, and you have cables running here and there to kind of pull, and you can make them AV enabled today. So it has evolved what used to be earlier. So I think the whole network topology, the network infra deployment has also become more cost effective, which has helped the AV deployment over the network more, you can say, efficient and more cost effective versus the past scenario. So if you ask me, I think, is it really expensive? Depends on the size. Depends on the future requirement expansion planning. Then you have to really choose the best way out of it. If you want to send one signal to the other signal from this corner to that corner, maybe traditional AV is cheaper.
Correct.
Maybe.
Larger the deployment,
Yeah.
cheaper is the IT solution. Since Farhan was not comfortable asking the cost question,
No, I am In fact, I have a
I will
pain
throw a
point here.
second question to you. Maybe.
Yeah. In fact, I have a pain point here because we have a very large customer, global customer of ours, who used to buy 32 matrix switches. They changed over to AV or IP, and our BOQ cost went down by almost 25-30%. Yeah, we are good. We are happy that they have made the change, but it is, as Ashish rightly said, it is designed to design. A lot of times the AV or IP system is cheaper, a lot of times. But it's just that we don't know, we don't put that effort to make two designs and check whether this is cheaper, this is better. Even if you do that, you'll realize that it is cost effective.
Sometimes we are happy somebody buy traditional AV.
You know,
In fact, we are sometimes happy.
I always feel that the cost should not only be in terms of the monetary cost, right? So when you talk about an installation like a convention center where you have, a large convention happening, and if you're talking about your traditional AV, you're doomed. I think the cost of the manpower, the cost of that particular event is extremely crucial when you talk about the costing. Right. So I think that's what we need to talk about when we talk about the investment that the customer is making.
Correct. I wanted to ask Farhan this thing from room management system, like, remote management of the entire solution. So Crestron used to sell Fusion and other softwares where like you can control anything from anywhere. So how it is changing or evolving when we are coming to AV over IP?
In fact, it is AV or IP is adding great value to it because it takes time to, as compared to a traditional system, to deploy an AV or IP system, as the team also mentioned here, that you need to configure each and every endpoint. Unlike in the traditional where we just plug an HDMI or take the TX-RX, just connect and you don't need to configure the transmitter or the receiver, just have a Cat5 connectivity and then take the HDMI and connect it to the display. But what we are missing there was, we were actually able to track only the switcher, but after the switcher, when the signal converts onto an HDMI, we don't have a tracking, whether the video is going to the display, whether the encoder is giving me an input or no. But when it comes to AV or IP, of course, there's a configuration which I need to do on the encoder side, decoder side, the switch level, everything. But the entire setup from end to end becomes like a trackable system. I can actually track till the display, whether the display is powered on or not, without actually doing any additional programming, any additional configuration, because everything is on the network and it's just one network route back to the cloud management softwares or the on-prem softwares like we have Fusion or XIO Cloud, where you can actually see encoder, decoder working, not working, powering off, whether it is connected to a Samsung display, LG display, Panasonic display, what kind of resolution you are getting, whether it is getting a 2-channel audio output, whether it is giving a 5-channel audio output. You can track every single thing. It's like you don't have any weak point in the entire system because everything is IP driven, right? From your source all the way up to display, the entire chain becomes like an integrated chain, and you don't have any loopholes there. So it has actually made our life even more simpler.
Yeah, maintenance
maintaining
becomes very easy. How about firmware upgrades, Ashish? Like, how difficult it was earlier days and how is now?
Actually, you can send one firmware to all the boxes in one shot, right? And they can upgrade, which not was the case. You have to kind of go to each box, upgrade. So obviously, network has brought all that flexibility. Talking to all the boxes together, upgrading them together, maintaining them together. They can also kind of run the control part of it via the network. So definitely the backbone is very common, same language, makes it flexible, makes it easy. So it's easier, I would say. I think, as you said, it's become more easier with the whole network, everything coming on network.
Correct. So now before we move on to open this session, like, for audiences to ask the question, the last message I would like to have from you guys to audiences, especially many people I could see are from pro AV or end user side. What is your message, like, convergence of traditional AV to AV over IP, how the world is going to look like, or how this field is evolving, what is coming next, and what is the message for us?
We used to, when VGAs were converted into HDMIs, we used to say it's analog sunset which is happening, right? So same way, it is the traditional video will die down and the sunset is on it. So basically, it is high time where both, not only both, in fact all three, end customers, manufacturers and partners to move on from the traditional AV onto an AV or IP system, whether it is for video, control, data, anything, any monitoring, any of those sorts. But we have no other choice but to move on to it and adapt to it. And as you will move on to it, you will realize that it is a better system than the traditional one, with all the goodness of the traditional AV what you used to get earlier. So no other choice.
I think just to add what you at the beginning said, so we AV guys are not going to lose jobs because we have become AV over IP. Yes. We're going to actually get larger projects, larger deployments. So I think, but it's our responsibility as AV vendors, integrators, to make sure that we upskill our knowledge base so that we can at least understand the basic language to kind of translate that into the whole IT environment. Otherwise, we'll have the same tough time when IT guys are going to ask us some difficult questions about the network. But see, as I said, I think IT has been very supportive of accepting AV. So I think it's our time to really also learn on the IT side. The flexibility that AV over IP gives is tremendous. And it is endless also. And it's going to evolve as we evolve, right? So eventually it's going to be on wireless eventually, right? I mean, there will be ways to find out how wireless you are transmitting 4K. So we have to keep upgrading our knowledge if we want to go. The IT convergence is there. And it is not going to go. It's going to evolve more further and further. So as AV community, it's our responsibility and for our own benefit that we kind of upgrade ourselves to get on that path. So our message would be that don't be afraid of the networks or the IT language. It's not that difficult. I mean, we have learned it already. We can help you with some basics of it, but feel free to really focus on that side. That's the future that eventually is going to go.
How do you see the future, Rohan?
I've been away for AV for quite some time, and I've been in broadcast for the last 5 years now. And I'm seeing the broadcast industry move towards AV over IP, where it is very mission critical for them, and they were always the traditional guys. So I think if the broadcast guys can do it, we can easily do it, That's number one. Just to add to that, we are today seeing so many things being spoken about cloud. This is just off the record, out of the context. But we are working on a project wherein we are doing complete virtual production for a client in the cloud and completely NDI. Ashish mentioned about sending, a 4K signal on wireless. I have a camera in my office which is able to send an NDI signal wirelessly. Of course, that's it.
So that is how it has been evolved. And it will keep going ahead. So there is nothing to scare on. It's just that our AV community must understand, start learning the IT language. AV has always been a separate kind of community which IT was scared of. Today with AV over IP, IT is coming in very fast. We must learn their language.
Thank you. Thank you. Now with this, I open the session for the question answer. We are fortunate enough to have 100 years experience put together on my left. So you can ask any question over on this subject. Yeah, please. I thought no questions means you all are scared.
Okay, it's good to see all of you here, and the discussion was really interesting. I'm just stepping back a little bit when you were talking about protocols. Like, we have so many different AV over IP protocols right now. What are your thoughts on protocols that are company-led, like something like Dante, which is Ordinate, which is basically shepherding it through and opening it up even more, especially with the now, they're opening it up for non-chips as well? Or versus something that's AES67, or that is more industry-led, like STVOE or SIMT 2010 versus Dante AV. What are your thoughts? Like, is it better to have one shepherd company pushing a protocol forward, making it better, making it solid, like with NewTek and NDI? Or is it better to just have an industry body pushing it forward with the pros and cons that comes with a committee decision-making process?
Can I?
Yeah.
I'll try to answer this. See, there are many protocols which are currently available. See, AV over IP is not a technology which is age-old technology. It is still evolving. Okay, so somebody works on SDVOE, somebody works on AVH, somebody works on Dante, somebody works on... So this is going to happen for some time. Okay, So over the period, there will be one protocol. Now, if you ask me where the industry is going, we are talking about something called IPMX, Internet Protocol Media Exchange. So that is also coming in. So I believe currently you will have this different protocols for some time, but over the period,
I think you mentioned a very important point about new tech and NDI. So when new tech came up with NDI, Abdulji, I think today NDI is been adopted by more than 3,000 manufacturers, including the likes of Microsoft and Zoom, which gives an NDI output. And similarly, you also have SMPT 2110. I believe, at least at this point of time, they both are for different applications. Just like the way your regular H.264, your JPEG IP versus your SDVOE chipsets. I think people who absolutely do not want any kind of delay and lossless video, they go for an SMPT 2110 or they go for an SDVOE. Whereas where it is not so mission critical and people are okay, they go for NDI or an JPEG or H.264. So in a way, it is good that people have a choice, right? But we do see that things merging. Let's say, for example, new tech. On the TriCaster, you can get any input. You can get an SMPT, you can get an SRT, you can get an NDI, you can get an RTNP, RTSP. Any IP field is available. So I think things will move towards that. But at least at this point of time, you have much more options in AV or IP to choose from.
Anybody would like to add something?
So I think someone has to develop something, right? So we know that how bad we all failed on AVB, right? And everybody tried to come up with AVB, and that really was a very big disaster that we saw. And we also know that during COVID, when we didn't have Dante chips, how we all struggled to get everything that had Dante in it, right? But see, I think the way, if I talk about AVH, the Dante AVH thing has evolved, it is giving you more flexibility. It is different than what I would make as a point-to-point proprietary protocol versus something which is talking, not from me, it is talking to some third-party item also the same language. So we have gone from my language to some language which other person are also interpreting. So we are already on that path. As you rightly said, some shepherd company will develop, or we have IEEE to do some development. So it is an evolvement. And then eventually there will be a day we'll have one common language, right? Now we are moving towards, you see, we had a USB-A, these chargers. You saw the European Union passing that everything has to have a USB-C. So we are trying to regularize the power ports for it. So that is how you'll see the evolvement, I would say, in the AV field also. But with the current protocols that we have, we are on that path, which is more practical and more flexible and more open to talking to multiple boxes together. So I think we are on that path. But yes, there is always an evolvement that we'll see in the future. And it is always good to have one common language to speak with. So I think it's a journey that we are still traveling.
We have few minutes left. I can take one or two more questions. If anybody has a question, can ask. Yeah, please.
Hello everyone. Recently I saw a video on internet that in China they did a critical brain surgery remotely, definitely using AV over IP. Is it possible in India today, or how far we are from it?
Sorry, I could not hear.
What was the question?
In China they did critical brain surgery remotely. Is it possible in India today, or how far we are from doing it?
In remotely? Yeah, I think our scope is, of course, on the video side. So video side is certainly possible. In terms of the doctor skill sets, I'm sure we have enough qualified doctors here to perform that. But I think there's no technology which is there across the globe which is not there in India. We are pretty much there. Bandwidth-wise also, network-wise also, we are there. So there should not be any challenge there. Of course, different countries have different things. So I think we still don't have the need of doing it remotely because we have enough facilities here. So, but yeah, video on the network for medical applications is certainly there. We have done many hospitals ourselves Our other panelists also are saying they have done medical installations where video on the network for medical field is being used drastically, tremendously.
Actually, that was possible, I think, with AV over IP only. Like, remotely if you are doing something. And that's what the topic delay we discuss in length, just to address that criticality of delay. Like, of course it is in very millisecond, but we discuss it in length already. So it's possible.
Thank you.
Anybody would like to add anything? Yeah. One more question we can take up. That is going to be the last question. Yes. No, pehle do.
So mine is not a question actually, it's like an appreciation of the discussion. First of all, very good discussion, and you all have 100 years of experience among yourselves, as you said, which is a great thing to hear from all of you. And I have been working at Harman for about 5 years now, and I'm there for 7 years in the industry. But I've deployed several AV over IP projects, from very large projects with more than 100 switches to projects which have only 2 switches. And I've programmed them, configured them, Cisco switches, Netgear switches. So I can tell you firsthand how it happens and how difficult it is. So you asked a very valid question that can they take our jobs in the IT? So the answer to that is straight away no. I've interacted with client IT teams and all of them. So it's very difficult for them to understand our requirements of AV and to take up our jobs. It is easier for us to learn IT. Like as I learned how to program switches and the IT world and VLANs and how everything works, it's more difficult for them to learn our AV world. So that's how it is. So thank you for the discussion and for everything.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, like, it was just we were joking, like, nothing takes anybody's job. Okay, even if we say like AI is taking, like, long back, like if you look back, there were typists, like, computer has not taken the job, they have given them the better opportunity. So we have many other things to do, like once we are free from this.
So just to add to that, we're talking about AV over IP, and we've been discussing a lot of video, but there's also audio in there, right? Now, as far as taking away somebody's jobs is concerned, I mean, I know Abdul Bhaijan just kind of casually said that, but you work in Harman, right? The arrangement of the line array, just a tilt of 1 degree here and there, it makes a lot of difference. So at the end of the day, it's all about skill set. Again, coming back to the point that I'm reiterating again, it's we who need to upgrade ourselves. We need to learn something new, and it is always crucial and it is always beneficial to us. There's nothing wrong with that.
Definitely, we all are in technology domain and it is continuously evolving. So we all have to keep upgrading ourselves, keep learning new thing, and give the industry better things. Thank you very much, all the panelists, being part of this wonderful discussion. Thank you all for attending this session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, panelists. It was really an insightful and lovely session. I would request my colleague to come up on stage with the token of appreciation. Audience, please give a huge round of applause for this wonderful session.